For the past 4 years, we've been living out of a two-wheel drive contractor van turned overlander while chasing adventure across the Americas. From the Arctic Ocean in Tuktoyaktuk, Canada, to the rugged southern tip of Argentina in Ushuaia, we drove our tiny home on wheels into some of the wildest and most remote corners we could find on the map. After 16 countries and more than 100,000 kilometers on the road, we've returned home with a lifetime of lessons learned. But we're not done traveling. We have driven all the way from north to south. Now, we're putting all of the lessons we've learned from that trip to build the ultimate overland vehicle that will carry us around the world. We're the Slow Roamers, and this is our World Tour build series.
Oh, well, hey there folks, it's Alex here from the Alex Build Stuff Show. It's a show where I build stuff and I show you. So we've run into a little bit of a delay, which means that I'm not going to be able to get you a lot of build content for next week's video. So I thought that maybe we would fill you in a little bit on some of the details of the build. When we introduced Jerry, we kind of left everyone hanging as to like what exactly the camper is going to look like, what the truck is kind of supposed to look like. We just said we're building a camper, we're driving around the world, and it's going to be great. And then that was pretty much it. And it was a little bit intentional, but I figured that we're at a point now where we can start sharing some of the details. What better time than now? And I'm going to be diving into the interior build, and it's just going to take a long time. It might be a two-part video. So I figured we would give y'all something to look forward to. So I just wrote a big list of stuff on my whiteboard. So let's go to the whiteboard. All right, well, welcome to the whiteboard of doom. It's not really doomsy, but it's a very small version of all the things that I have to do between now and next May, giving me less than a year to get everything done. I think this project is pretty ambitious, but I am happy to tell you that we are already ahead of schedule, which means we'll be able to get some camping done this summer as well, in addition to doing lots of build stuff. Okay, so first things first is the interior. I'm gonna go talk about that over there. All right, welcome to the interior of Jerry. As I've mentioned before, this entire interior is very analog, very outdated, and it needs a little bit of a refresh. One of the things that pretty much everyone said as soon as we released video of Meg and I driving in Jerry was, holy smokes, it's super loud in there and you guys should sound deadened. And there was no version of this story of rebuilding this whole truck that didn't involve a part where we sound deaden the entire cab. In fact, that's going to be one of the very first things that I do to this cab, aside from stripping out the entire interior. We're taking everything out. Bench seat, dash, steering column, all of this stuff. It's all coming out so that I can get in at the floor, at the firewall, at the back wall. Obviously the ceiling is already exposed, and I'm going to be putting sound deadening mat down. As well, I'm going to be putting sound dampening mat on the firewall so that all of the engine noise is not coming into the cab. One of the other things that we kind of failed to mention in our last videos is that our shifter boot does not exist right now. We actually have to make a custom one. So all of that engine noise is coming up through the transmission hole in the floor. So it's extra loud in here to begin with. But I'm confident that once we get all this sound deadening in, that the truck will be substantially easier to drive around in, which I'm really looking forward to. So I'm doing something maybe a little bit controversial in the sound deadening department. After I get all of these sound deadening down onto the floor and the walls and stuff like that, I'm actually going to bedline the entire interior of the cab. This will add an element of like toughness to everything in here. It's going to be just rough and tough. It's really hard to damage bedliner. I love the stuff. And then as well, it's also going to act as additional sound deadening or dampening. I also like the idea that I will have kind of a uniform look to everything in here before I put all the seats and dash and stuff like that back in. I haven't really been able to brainstorm the bad parts or the bad results of this, if there are any, of doing bedliner over top of sound deadening. I feel like there's probably some like unexpected water ingress entrapment in the cab, but I'm going to try really hard to make sure that that doesn't happen and that all of the steel is completely sealed off. I will be putting in a new dashboard into the truck. I purchased one right when we got back here to Canada. When we put it in, There will be a few new creature comforts in the dash, so we'll have a navigation screen right here. I will be putting our Auxbeam switch panel right here. As well, we'll have some cup holders and it will look just a lot nicer. This bench seat is going, and we are getting new seats for the truck, and we are working with the company for our seating option, which we're really excited to share with you guys, but of course there's a time for that, so stay tuned. Lastly, our center console is going to go from a bench seat to a 12-volt refrigerator. We're going to put a 12-volt like cooler refrigerator in here so that we have cold drinks, cold meats and cheeses or something like that, so that we don't have to go into our living space if we want to eat lunch while on the road. I have dead space right here between the seats that I'm going to build some lens storage for my cameras. Obviously, we're YouTubers and we shoot a lot of video, and it's nice to have the option of changing between lenses and not have to go digging for my lenses. And one lesson that I've learned over and over and over again is that if it's not easy to get, you will not use it. And one last note for the interior, I think we're going to try and replace these door cards. I'm gonna do aluminum sheeting just because this door is quite flat on the inside, and I wanna try and lighten up these doors as much as possible. As well, I wanna build custom armrests and storage in the doors. So this is going to get a 14 gauge aluminum sheet here, and then I'm going to build a nice cushioned armrest right here and put storage on the bottom so that I can actually put little knickknacks in the door if I need to. So yeah, that's pretty much everything for the interior. It's gonna look a heck of a lot better in here once I'm done with it, believe me. Okay, in terms of the exterior changes we're gonna be doing to the truck, yes, 100% we are painting this truck, and we have not settled on a color scheme yet. I'm gonna be showing you some examples of what the truck is going to look like that I have just developed through using AI. And of course, AI doesn't really get exactly what I'm thinking of. It's sometimes really hard to make the perfect prompt to show you exactly what you want, and you only have so many attempts if you don't want to pay. So that's not exactly what we're going to be doing, but you'll get the idea. I'm not going to be really fixing any of the dents or anything like that because I want this truck to look like it's been used and abused. I like that. I don't like a show truck. So this is one that I think a lot of people will probably be fairly excited about. I have mentioned it before, but we're going to take the factory box off the back of the truck, and I'm going to build a custom flat deck. I'm going to put a render of what I envision for the truck. I'll put it right here. This is a 2D render that I did. This is the very first image that I'll show you of what the truck is to become. And if you can imagine kind of a Bowen Customs-like flat deck, but it's modular. So what I intend to do, and I've thought about this a lot, and I'm very confident this idea will work very well. I'm going to build a steel frame on the back of the truck. I will be able to build that myself. Then once the steel frame is built, I will take the truck to a mutual friend of Wes and I's, and hopefully he will be building the aluminum boxes for us. And so what I plan to have is a steel frame, and then I will hang the aluminum box off of the frame. So we'll have a front box here, we'll have a rear box, and then on top of the frame there will be a full-length toolbox on top with doors that open, and you know, I can get all the tools and stuff out of there. So the idea behind the steel frame is that it's a load-bearing frame, and because aluminum has the tendency to crack if it's not welded properly, and it's a slightly more brittle metal, having the steel frame ensures that one, it's extremely strong, but two, it can be repaired easily. And of course, I'm thinking way ahead to when we're in different countries that finding a person that can weld aluminum is a lot harder than here in North America. I want ultimate repairability when we're way out in the bush in Africa or Central Asia, the Middle East, or something like that. I just want to be able to repair things, and finding someone who can use a stick welder to repair a steel frame is far easier than doing it with aluminum. So, steel frame, aluminum boxes. I'll be doing typical stuff like compressor unit in this box, and then on the other side is going to be our house batteries so that I get as much of our weight as low as possible. And then of course we'll just have tool storage, probably some exterior food storage on these boxes. In the back of the truck, I will be building a custom steel bumper. I want to have that stopping power Even though it's a little bit heavier, I want my rear bumper to be steel so that I can pull off of it and stuff can hit it and I don't have to worry about it. It's going to have a half swing with a tire, a spare tire, and then a permanent storage box on the back. I will provide an image right here of the back of the camper and the truck and the rear bumper. And the reason I'm doing the swing out is just because it will act as an additional security measure over the back door. We, of course, when we were in Chile, our van got broken into, and so it got us thinking a lot more about security measures for our vehicle going forward. And I just want to make sure that I can put as many locks on things and just discourage people from trying to break into our living space. So on the back of the camper, that permanent box that you see in the image is going to have our propane, just like it was in Betty, except it won't be on a swing out. It'll just be a small permanent box. We're only doing a 10-pound cylinder or 5-pound cylinder, 10-pound cylinder this time. So it'll be a smaller box in the back. And yeah, this is pretty much everything to do with back there. The other additional exterior modification we're gonna do to this truck, I say exterior, it's kind of on the inside though. We're gonna be doing an auxiliary fuel tank, and I'm hoping for about 80 liters extra fuel so that we have roughly a 1,200 kilometer range. I know from what I've read from Dan Greck's experience that, you know, while he was in Africa, he never saw more than really 500 kilometers of no fuel. And we certainly experienced this exact same thing in South America and Central America. There is never anything more than 500 kilometers without fuel. That being said, we are going to be going into countries that have fuel shortages, and we have been through countries with fuel shortages. And I just want to make sure that we are able to carry as much fuel as possible so that if we do run into a scenario where we need the extra range, we will certainly have it. As well, we will be carrying a diesel heater inside of the camper, so I can just feed a line right directly into the auxiliary fuel tank and have almost limitless time for the diesel heater, which is pretty cool. Yeah. Alrighty, so let's talk about the camper. I hope you guys can hear me. It just started dumping rain, which is really fantastic because it's going to bring down the fire danger this summer, but anyway, I hope you can hear me. I think what we have planned for this camper is going to be super unique, super cool, and I'm really excited to start building it. So first off, the camper is not going to be a slide-in camper. It's going to be what I want to call a half cap. It's kind of like a canopy, but it has a pop-top component. We will have an over-cab sleeping area, but if you can imagine a four-wheel camper's M series or overland camper, that's what we're going to build. And the reason that we're doing that is because we're trying to make this truck as light as possible. And so that means not putting in an additional floor. Basically, the floor of our camper is going to be the deck of our flat deck. As well, it's just a better, more efficient use of space in the end. It'll be light and easy to take off, probably for the most part. Now, the construction of the camper might be a little bit controversial, but believe me, I've used this method before and it has worked for me. So here it is. We're not doing an aluminum frame. I know I've been like preaching, you know, weight savings and stuff like that, but I want a material that's easier to work with. It can be repaired. Just like I'm building the steel frame for the flat deck, I want a steel frame for the camper so that, I don't know, if it does get damaged, it's easier to fix. As you guys might know, I built an expedition style truck once upon a time. I'll put a picture of it right here. I've shown it in a few other videos. That was a 1990 Leyland DAF T244 that I bought, and I built an enclosure on the back and lived out of it for a year. And that was a steel frame aluminum skin. It worked totally fine. I actually used glue, and I glued the aluminum panels with a few rivets to the steel frame, and it worked great. And that truck is still driving around in the United States somewhere. So for this camper, we're gonna be doing a lightweight, lightish weight steel frame. It'll be a 1x2 by 16 wall rectangular tube steel frame. And then I'm going to either use a thin aluminum sheet or possibly ACP, which stands for aluminum composite panel. It's plastic, aluminum foil, plastic. I don't know if it costs less than aluminum, and it might be just a tiny bit lighter, but my friend Matt used it on his Leyland DAF T244 build, and he's had a lot of luck with it, so I wanted to kind of do the same thing. We haven't yet decided on the windows that we're going to be using. We would probably like to use maybe Arctic turn windows, but I don't know, maybe there's a better option out there. But what we're hoping for is a window with a blackout blind, a bug screen, and then it can fully flip open for natural ventilation in the camper. If you guys have any suggestions for other companies that make windows like that, or if you're a company rep and you want to help support us, feel free to reach out, because as of right now, we have not made that decision, but we would definitely like to have some pretty high quality windows. Let's talk about the roof of this camper. And I think this is going to be kind of one of those really unique elements of this camper that will set it apart from a lot of what other people build. First off, it's going to be an aluminum frame because it has to be as lightweight as possible. But then instead of using the ACP or aluminum panel, I'm actually going to fiberglass the roof because I want it as one piece. I cannot tell you enough the heartache and the stress that a drip of water on your face when you're about to go to sleep while it's raining outside will have on you. It's the worst feeling ever. And I've fought so many leaks in different campers in the past. And that is why I just want to have a one-piece roof so that I never have to deal with leaks, at least from the roof. The shape of the roof portion is going to be very similar to like a Land Rover 110 roof. It'll have the kind of radiused front curve, a slight angle at the front, and then it'll flatten out, and then it'll have radius corners on the sides as well. The reason I do this is that it just allows for water to run off as easy as possible. It looks really unique, and I think that Land Rover 110 roofs are really cool looking, so why not make a roof on our camper like that? Okay, so for the walls, like the extending walls in the lift portion of the camper, I'm gonna be doing a 3-layer wall. So on the outside panel is going to be fully waterproof. Then there's going to be a insulative thinsulate layer, and on the inside there's going to be a semi-waterproof layer, and it's going to be kind of like a sandwich, and we'll have built-in windows around. Luckily, my mom is a seamstress, so she's going to be either teaching Meg how to do that, or helping us build this big wraparound fabric wall that we're going to be building for this camper. I friggin' love having parents that can build stuff or create things. It's fantastic. So future shout out to my mom for helping us with that one day, a few months from now. Moving to the interior of the camper, because we're doing a half cab camper that can be removed and there's no floor, like it's not a sliding camper, we're going to be doing a modular aluminum build out on the inside. Before getting home, I purchased a metal brake so that I can bend aluminum, and then I'm going to be building structures out of aluminum using rib nuts, rivets, a little bit of welding, and then just a bending aluminum panel. It's just something I want to try because of course I want to make this build as light as possible, and I think I can do it, but I won't know until I try it. So that's what I'm going to do. This is a floor plan right here, or maybe I'll just do a full screen floor plan cut. We're gonna have a countertop on the driver's side where Meg will have lots of prep space. She'll have her cooktops, no sink, lots of drawers for storage. And then on the other side, we'll have an L-shaped bench that will seat us both and allow us to kind of lounge out a little bit. In the van, I was unable to really lounge very comfortably. I was always stuck to being in my chair. I always missed a couch, so we get to have kind of a couch or a bench in this build. The footprint of our camper is going to be roughly 8.5 to 5 feet wide. And this should allow us ample space for a toolbox that is built into the camper that goes right behind the cab. So right here is going to be an exterior accessed toolbox that is about 1.5 feet in width. And then the rest is going to be living space in where the truck bed is. In the center at the front of the camper is going to be our refrigerator. We're going to be putting a big dual zone refrigerator in the front so that Meg has plenty of storage for veggies, milk, drinks, frozen items, etc. We want to make sure that we can carry as much food with us as possible, because we actually found that was the limiting factor while we were in South America, was how much food and water we could bring with us. I think we could have stayed out way longer in places if we had more water and just more storage for fresh vegetables and food and stuff. Some of you might be thinking about this aluminum modular interior and thinking that might be really ugly, which, I mean, yeah, probably would be, but we're going to be putting natural wood accents on the interior. No 2-inch thick maple countertops, however. We're going to be doing something far lighter this time, but we are going to try and make it look as homey and natural as possible. So just in case you were worried about that. So let's talk about the electrical system. This time around, we are yet again doing a 12-volt system. We're looking for about 600 plus amp hours of lithium iron phosphate batteries, about 300 to 500 watts of solar on the roof. This time around, we're going to be doing 50 plus amps of DC-DC. We have learned from our mistakes. While we were up in the north a few summers ago, you might remember that we were starting to have charging issues because there wasn't enough sun to charge from solar, and our alternator was failing. We didn't know it, so it wasn't feeding our DC-DC enough, and we weren't able to charge our batteries, and we were starting to panic because we work on the road, make videos on the road, etc. We've got an alternator in this truck that does 370 amps, and that is very strategic because we want to run a 50 amp DC-DC and then possibly an additional 50 or 30 amp DC-DC so that we can supercharge our batteries when we really need to. This time around, Meg is getting 2 cooking options, one of which is going to be an induction top. We don't want to go full induction, so we're doing 1 induction cooktop and then a gas cooktop as well. But as you might know, induction kind of sucks back battery life really quickly, so we have to have a massive battery bank. So at the very worst, if we're not charging at all, we can still kind of cook our food for a few days. The options kind of come into play when Meg is cooking versus baking. Meg wants to bake, so gas is far more efficient to bake with. And the induction top is good for a lot of things, but doesn't do everything really well. So that is why we just have those options. But then Meg can also bake, and we all want Meg baking and cooking. Repeat it with me. We all want Meg baking and cooking because food is awesome. So we want to give her as many options there as possible. And we're just going to be looking for the best possible quality electrical components for this build because we want to make sure that we have global support in the event that something goes wrong with any of those. So going a little bit more into the amenities and kitchen topic, Meg's getting her induction and gas cooktops. She is also getting a far bigger prep space. Our countertop is going to be the full length of our living space. Like we said before in one of our other videos, we're not doing a sink because we found that we just don't use a sink. I kind of briefly mentioned this before, but we plan on having exterior access toolboxes on the side of the camper right behind the cab. I wanted to do that so that I can put my tools in there. I found that when I was getting underneath the bed in Betty, our van, I was breaking my back pulling the tools out, and I just wanted to make sure that I had easy access to my tools when I had to repair stuff. It's a great little spot to have a toolbox right behind the cab. Lots and lots of people have asked if we're doing a pass-through, and the answer to that is no. We are not doing a pass-through because we have learned firsthand the downsides to having a pass-through. So first off, our van did get broken into. That person that broke into our van was able to open our front door, quickly reach around and grab my drone and Meg's laptop in our living space. And so just from a security standpoint, I want to be able to lock down our camper so that no one can get into it. That's kind of going back to what I was saying about being able to lock the back door as well. I just want to discourage would-be burglars from getting any of our stuff. As well, we found that our living space was constantly dusty in the van. And if you're doing a lot of back roads and you want to drive with your windows open, that dust ingress is going to go straight onto your bed, onto your countertops, over everything. And we were constantly having to slap out our covers and our pillows and stuff like that from dust whenever we drove down a dusty road. Of course, we didn't have air conditioning, so we had to have the windows open in really hot places, but you get the point. Like, we just don't want to have dust all over our stuff again, so no pass through. I will reiterate some last points for this camper and truck build that I've said many times. We're trying to make the camper as light as possible. Our target is between 7,000 and 8,000 pounds. I think that's fairly realistic for this truck. I have not weighed it yet, but I'm aiming for that, and I think I can accomplish that. As I've said many times, Betty, our van, was almost 9,000 pounds, and I built very, very heavy, and there's aspects of that van that make it very heavy right from the get-go. As well, this truck has to fit into a container. We have a container right there that is 8.5 feet tall. And if we can't back the truck into that container, then we need to make it lower. So luckily we can kind of play with dimensions and stuff like that, but that's the goal. We don't want to do row. We want to go into a container for shipping across the Atlantic and over to Australia, and then so on and so forth. And last but not least, we want to make sure that this truck continues to have a very small footprint. We found that the American-made full-size vehicle was the best balance of big and small overland vehicle. I think that the footprint of this truck is pretty much perfect for long periods of time living on the road. Our wheelbase is less than Betty was. Our turning radius isn't going to be quite as good as Betty, but it's not bad. We chose the 05 and up Super Duty axle because it does have a better turning radius. It's going to be hopefully under 8.5 feet tall, and as well, it's not going to be as long as Betty. Like, I might actually lengthen the bed by just a smidge, but we have to keep it under 20 feet long so that we could possibly fit it into a 20-foot high cube container if we can find one. So yeah, those are the goals for this camper. I've scattered in a few images that were made from AI of what the truck is supposed to look like or might look like in the future. This one right here is kind of the closest that we have gotten to what it is going to look like once we're done. Of course, the color there is not what it's going to be. I think we have a far more fun color scheme for the truck that we will introduce to you later on this summer. But yeah, that's it right there. That is the dream, and I hope you guys can get as stoked as we are about it. And you're gonna see it materialize right in front of your eyes as week by week we chip away at small projects on this massive dream of ours. So yeah, thanks guys so much for sticking around to the end. Thank you for being stoked on this build and joining us on this journey. We're so stoked to have all of you along with us. And if you're new here, welcome to the Slow Roamers channel and this big dream of ours to build this truck and drive around the world. That is all for this video. Thanks for being here. We'll catch you in the next one. Later.
Whoa, wait. One sec. Before you guys go, I thought of one last thing. If you guys have any great suggestions, feel free to share them in the comments. We have been thinking about this for a very, very long time. We have ideas that we want to hang on to, but we're always open to good suggestions that might change our mind about what we could be doing better. As well, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's the freest thing you can do to just help us out, get us to 100,000 subscribers by the end of the summer. Fingers crossed. All right, later, bye.